Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here, diving deep with you into the disciples' lives. And as we've had a slew of them so far, we've had Peter, James, and John, Andrew, Philip. We're on to about halfway down the disciples. And we come to this disciple that's well known, hardly well known in the scriptures, but really well known in the tradition of Christianity because his name is Thomas. And when I say Thomas, I know exactly what you're thinking because it's been heralded throughout the generations in the church, doubting Thomas. We know the story of him saying that he wasn't there with the disciples in the upper room, and Jesus appeared to him and says, unless I see his hands and his feet, unless I put my hand into his side, I will not believe. So he got this doubting Thomas. However, Thomas is really actually more well known in the scriptures for what his name actually means. Thomas Didymus, or Teoma, which in the Hebrew is twin. And so actually a better translation when it talks about Thomas called Didymus, the twin. Thomas, the Hebrew name, is actually called twin, which is known as Didymus twin. So it's actually twin the twin. He doesn't really have a name. Twin the twin, known as the twin. Who was his twin? We don't know. That makes it even a little bit more funny. But either way, Thomas was called by Jesus. We're going to open up to Luke chapter 6, and it just gives us a nice little brief section of the 12 disciples. We haven't read really all the names before, but we want to walk through this. We're going to walk through this in a quicker way because as I was thinking about this, not trying to stretch it out too much, especially when we get to these disciples in the last part, we just don't have much on these disciples as we did with Peter, James, and John. Andrew and Philip mentioned, yes, but Thomas mentioned about 8 times in the New Testament, 4 times of those listings, so really only 4 encounters that we get to see with Jesus and also what he did in the tradition of the church. So we're going to take 2 or 3 days with each of these disciples, leading us into summer, and we'll see how God directs what we do in the summer, whether that'll be a break or whether that'll be a daily routine of getting in the Word again. I kind of like these each morning, and I pray that you do as well. Thank you for joining in. Luke chapter 6. Luke chapter 6, it talks about the 12 apostles. So we're going to set again just the understanding. Disciples mean followers, disciplined people of Jesus, right? The mentees of Jesus. And as we get to see here, apostles mean sent ones of Jesus. Luke chapter 6, beginning at verse 12. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles, sent ones. Simon, who he named Peter, his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called the Zealot, Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. So he's tucked in there. We get to see Thomas, called Didymus. And as we see that in Luke chapter 6, we actually get to see more encounters, actually all the encounters of Thomas in the Gospel of John. So I ask you to open up to John chapter 11 as we get to see him called as one of the disciples, but we get to see him pop up with some questions. But a lot of times statements. So I want to set this really kind of more for you as not doubting Thomas, but disciple Thomas. And as he has that incredible title of disciple Thomas, we get to see him in John chapter 11. And as we get to see him confronting or speaking with Jesus, he speaks to him at a particular time. John chapter 11. We're going to be hovering right around that middle section of chapter 11 when we get to see verse 11. I want to set up this context for you. You know it well if you've been reading the Bible with us, and that is Lazarus is one of Jesus' friends. And he's fallen sick, and he dies. And Jesus ventures with his disciples after his death at a certain point to be able to raise him from the dead. But as he's going here, they're going to a place, they're going to be walking to a place where Jesus has been threatened earlier in John here. As you go John 8, John 10, he has been threatened right around Jerusalem, and this is where Bethany is. And so if Jesus is coming back here, he's coming back to this threatened, kind of harsh place that people are plotting to kill him. And so Jesus, taking his time to get to where Lazarus was, he brings his disciples. And let's pick it up in John chapter 11, verse 11. He said, after he had said this, just what he had said before, our friend, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Not let us just go to him, let us go to that region that is hostile towards us. And so Thomas speaks up. Not so much of a doubting Thomas. Verse 16, he says, Then Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of his disciples, Let us also go, that we may die with him. Not die with Lazarus, but die with Jesus. A hostile place, a place that's not going to be welcoming, a place that's going to be a little uncomfortable. And Thomas addresses the rest of the disciples, hey, let's be unified. If Jesus is going, we've been with him. Let's go with him, even if we need to die with him. Pretty bold statement. Today I want to really focus in on our minds and our skepticism, our, let's just say, our prejudice towards Thomas when we say doubting Thomas. I know I preached on this a couple weeks ago, but less of a doubting Thomas and more of a disciple Thomas. I think we get really kind of sidetracked with being able to say that he's just unbelieving, doubting Thomas, because that's what we've known and heard, from John 21. We're going to get there in these next days. But really, Thomas was a disciple of Jesus, a real disciple of Jesus, a realist disciple of Jesus. But so often we just take him at the cover of the book. How often do we do that for other people? Not just doubting Thomas. That we just kind of take what we've been told about a certain person. As we dig deeper, as we see that in John chapter 11, he was pretty bold. He was a bold disciple, a unifying disciple. He let us, I'm not going to just speak for myself, we're a clan here together. Let us go, even if that means that we need to die with him. Bold, confessional, missionary, disciple of Jesus. This is my challenge for you today, that sometimes we see Thomas in a different way. I pray that we don't just prejudice and judge people for the cover of their book, but actually we get to know them, dig deep with them, perhaps even have a relationship with them. Yes, the people that we might not even know, or the people that we know just a little bit. We dig deep with them. We get to know them, who they are. We know that they're a child of God. But do we know what their story is, what their narrative is? Or do we just take that person at cover value? Jesus always speaks to his disciples of getting deeper in relationships. And so that's my challenge for you today as a part of the disciple Thomas. When we get to dive deeper into who he is, we get to dive deeper into his convictions, his boldness, his confessions, who he is and what he would do. And today, we don't really get a doubting Thomas. We get a disciple Thomas, willing to die with Jesus because he'd rather just be with Jesus. Let's take off our eyes of prejudice and judgment in amongst our communities this day and dive deeper to the people around us, getting to know them so that they can maybe get to know Jesus a little bit better, a little bit deeper, and be a disciple of Jesus as well. Brothers and sisters, blessings on your days as you look around you and you get to see people with the eyes of Jesus, that they're important, that they're worth it, that they can be a disciple. Have a blessed day.